She was ready to say goodbye, but her daughter whispered something that changed everything. Rachel Evans was 34 years old, but most days she felt like she had already lived 100 lifetimes. She lived with her 6-year-old daughter, Emily, in a small rented house on the edge of Tulsa, Oklahoma, the kind of place with cracked sidewalks, rusty mailboxes, and neighbors who mostly kept to themselves. It wasn't the life Rachel had dreamed of, but it was the life she had fought tooth and nail to hold together after everything fell apart. Years ago, Rachel had been a woman full of hope. She had grown up in a church community, sung in the choir, organized bake sales, led Sunday school classes. She had married young, believing in love and faith and the promise that things would work out. But life, it turned out, was harsher than she ever expected. Her husband, restless and frustrated, had walked out one morning without even saying goodbye, leaving her with an infant and a stack of unpaid bills. She had tried to hold on, working, praying, trusting, but the years chipped away at her. An unfair accusation at work cost her a job she had loved. Friends drifted away when she could no longer join social events. Debt piled up. Loneliness settled into the corners of her small home like dust. Somewhere along the way, the prayers stopped. Not out of anger. Rachel didn't rage at God, but out of quiet exhaustion. She just stopped believing anyone was listening. But Emily was the light that refused to go out. Emily was sunshine wrapped in a little girl's body, with curly brown hair, a giggle that filled the house, and a love for drawing animals on every scrap of paper she could find. Emily was the heart of Rachel's world. Even on the hardest days, when Rachel came home bone-tired from long shifts as a grocery store cashier, Emily would wrap her tiny arms around her mother's waist and look up with those big, trusting eyes. "You're the best mama in the world," she would say, and Rachel's cracked heart would hold together for one more day. That's why Rachel didn't worry much when Emily first started coughing. Kids got sick. It was winter after all. She brought home cough syrup, made chicken soup, tucked Emily under thick blankets, but the cough didn't go away. Instead, it deepened. Weeks passed, and soon came the fevers, the pale cheeks, the strange wheezing sound when Emily tried to laugh or talk. Rachel's unease grew into alarm. She brought Emily to urgent care, then to the pediatrician, then, when things didn't improve, to the emergency room. Sitting in a cold hospital room under harsh fluorescent lights, Rachel heard words that felt like they shattered the ground beneath her feet. "It's lung cancer. Stage 4. She barely remembered anything the doctors said after that. She sat frozen, her hands gripping Emily's tiny pink jacket in her lap, nodding numbly as they explained treatments, odds, next steps. How could this be happening? How could a child so young, so full of life, be facing something so dark? Rachel fought. She fought with everything she had. She signed every form, took out loans, pleaded with specialists, clung to every possible treatment option. But one by one, they fell away. The cancer was too advanced, too aggressive. One afternoon, the doctor sat her down, two of them both kind-faced but weary, and said gently, "It's time to focus on keeping her comfortable. You should spend as much time with her as you can." Rachel's world closed in. She quit her job, drained her savings, and moved into the hospital room, barely leaving Emily's side. She slept in the stiff vinyl chair, washed her face in the tiny bathroom sink, read stories to Emily until the little girl drifted off to sleep. She brushed Emily's thinning hair, kissed her warm forehead, and told her over and over, "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." She no longer prayed. There was nothing left to ask for. But Emily still whispered to the dark. On one cold, quiet night, long after the nurses had finished their rounds and the hospital halls had gone still, Emily woke up. Her chest burned with pain. Every breath was a struggle. Every movement made her dizzy. She looked over at her mother, who was curled up in the corner chair, exhausted, her face lined with worry even in sleep. Emily didn't want to wake her. She knew Mommy was tired, always so tired. So in the faintest shaking voice, Emily whispered, "God, can you hear me?" She squeezed her eyes shut. I don't want to go yet. I don't want to leave Mommy. Please help me." The tears rolled down her cheeks. She was only 6, but she understood what was happening more than anyone realized. She knew the doctors spoke in hushed voices. She knew how often Mommy cried in the bathroom. She knew. As the pain flared again, Emily clenched the blanket in her small fists and whispered, "Please, God, help me stay just a little longer." And then, just as her breathing hitched, just as her body trembled under the weight of the pain, Emily felt something she didn't expect. A warm hand, gentle, steady, wrapping softly around her own. Emily opened her eyes slowly. Sitting beside her bed where no one had been before was an elderly man. He had kind eyes, a soft smile, and a calmness in his face that made Emily's chest loosen ever so slightly. He didn't say a word. He simply smiled at her, squeezed her tiny hand gently, and stayed there as her body slowly relaxed and her eyes grew heavy once again. She drifted back into sleep, the pain quieting, her breath settling. Across the room, Rachel never stirred. She didn't see the man. She didn't feel the air change. She didn't notice the way the night quietly shifted around her daughter's bed. But by morning, everything had already begun to change. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the whisper of afternoon light spilling across the floor. Rachel sat slumped in the corner chair, eyes rimmed with exhaustion, hands trembling slightly in her lap. She had learned to live in this blur, half awake, half afraid, bracing for the worst every day. But today, something was different. Emily had woken up smiling. Her breathing, once labored and painful, had smoothed. Her cheeks, once pale, now carried a faint blush. Rachel had sat by her side, hardly daring to believe what she was seeing, afraid her heart would break again if she hoped too soon. Then came a soft knock at the door. An elderly doctor stepped in, silver-haired, soft-eyed, his white coat neat, his badge simple. Dr. James. He walked over with quiet, almost reverent steps and smiled gently. "Good afternoon," he said softly. "May I check on Emily?" Rachel nodded, blinking back a tear. She didn't remember seeing him before, but at this point, faces blurred together. Dr. James sat beside Emily, gently taking her small hand in his. His voice was soft, smooth like a quiet song. "You are very brave, Emily," he said warmly. "You've been through a lot, haven't you?" Emily's eyes widened slightly, a tiny smile creeping across her lips. "You were here," she whispered, her voice light and sure. "You held my hand last night when I was praying." Rachel's heart lurched. "Emily, sweetheart, what are you saying?" Dr. James turned calmly to Rachel, his kind gaze steady. "She's stronger than you know," he said softly. "And you, Rachel, you are stronger than you believe. You've been carrying a heavy burden. So many nights, so many tears, thinking no one saw, but you were never ever alone." Rachel's chest tightened, her breath shaky. "How do you know that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Dr. James simply smiled. "Sometimes," he murmured, "when you think you've been left behind, you're actually being carried." He stood gently, gave Emily's hand a final, light squeeze and said, "Rest now, little one. You are very loved." Rachel opened her mouth to speak, to thank him, but when she turned, he was gone. She hurried to the hallway, glanced left and right. No one. She asked the nurses. No one had heard of a Dr. James on shift. Her heart pounded, her hands shook. That evening, the hospital team ran test after test, scan after scan, blood draw after blood draw. Rachel sat curled in a corner, rocking slightly, barely daring to breathe. Then at last, the head doctor walked in, his face pale, his fingers trembling slightly as he clutched the report. "Rachel," he began slowly, we don't understand this. We've checked everything twice. The tumor, it's gone. There's no trace of cancer. It's as if she has a brand new set of lungs." Rachel stared at him, frozen. Her knees buckled and she sank into the chair, covering her face as deep, shaking sobs burst out of her. The doctor shook his head in quiet awe. "In all my years," he murmured softly, "I've never seen anything like this. Something very powerful was helping your daughter. This is what I would call a miracle." Rachel wept. her shoulders shaking, her hands gripping her chest. The walls she had built around her heart, the years of anger, bitterness, and quiet disbelief, cracked, crumbled, shattered under the weight of that word. But then, a soft tug on her sleeve. Rachel looked up, eyes blurry, and saw Emily gazing at her with a small, peaceful smile. "Mommy," Emily said softly, "do you know who healed me?" Rachel tried to speak, to smile, to explain. "The doctors, baby. The medicine, But Emily shook her head, her little voice calm and sure. "No, Mommy," she whispered. "It was God. God healed me." Rachel's chest tightened, her hands trembled. Emily smiled sweetly, gently squeezing her mother's hand. "Remember the man you saw today, the doctor? God sent him. But Mommy, I saw him before you did last night. When you were sleeping, I was hurting so bad, and I prayed. I asked God to help me, and he sent him to hold my hand. He told me I would get new lungs, and he kept his promise." Rachel's lips quivered. A sob wrenched out of her chest, raw and broken. Emily's eyes glistened. "Mommy, if you want to say thank you, you should say thank you to God. Don't be ungrateful, Mommy. God exists. He loves us. Even when you stopped believing, he never stopped looking after us." Rachel collapsed onto her knees. There, on the cold hospital floor, she lifted her shaking hands, pressed them together, bowed her head, and let the tears pour. Her voice cracked as she whispered through the sobs, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you, God. Thank you for giving her back to me. Thank you." Her shoulders shook, her chest heaved, the flood of years of silent pain breaking open in wave after wave of surrender. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the last rays of light filled the room, painting everything in a soft, golden glow. Emily closed her eyes, resting peacefully, knowing her prayer had been heard. Just breathe. Maybe right now you are carrying a weight like Rachel did. Maybe you feel unseen, unheard, abandoned by life or by heaven. Maybe you've stopped looking up because you've been hurt too many times. But this story asks you, gently, quietly, to reconsider. What if you were never as alone as you thought? What if the tears you hide, the whispers you think no one hears, have always been noticed? What if even the smallest, most fragile prayers can reach the heart of God? Miracles don't always come the way we expect, but sometimes they come quietly, in the soft hand of a child, in a stranger's knowing smile, or in the unexpected crack of light inside your own broken heart. Take a breath. Let yourself believe, even just a little, that you are seen, you are heard, and you are deeply, fiercely loved. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories of hope, faith, and the quiet miracles that remind us no one is ever truly forgotten. Let your heart remember, sometimes when we least expect it, God reaches in and brings us home.